Wine Work and Passion is brought to you by the Napa Valley Wine Academy, America's premier wine school and two-time winner of the WSET Global Wine Educator of the Year Award. You can find a course that's right for you at napavalleywineacademy.com and use the code in our show notes for a special discount. Welcome, wine enthusiasts and job seekers. I'm your host, Karen Wetzel, and Wine Work and Passion is the podcast where we inspire you to make a career out of your passion for wine. As a wine instructor, one of the most frequently asked questions I get is how to become a wine educator. So, in an effort to answer this burning question, I recruited my good friend and coworker, Jean Cox. Jean is a long-standing wine educator at the Napa Valley Wine Academy and wears a few other hats as well. She'll give us a peek behind the curtain into the life of a wine educator and provide great advice and direction for those who want to follow in her footsteps. If becoming a wine educator is how you want to make a career out of your passion for wine, then this is the episode for you. But before you meet Jean, I want to just take a moment to tell you that we now offer an amazing membership program, which gives you wine education on demand, so you can learn what you want when you want. For about the cost of a glass of wine a month, you can access world-class content through the Napa Valley Wine Academy. Learn more about our membership program or sign up today through the link in our show notes. So, on with the show. It's time to meet my cohort in crime, Jean Cox. Well, welcome to Wine Work and Passion. Can you tell our audience who you are and what you do in the wine industry?
So my name is Jean Cox, and I work for the Napa Valley Wine Academy. I am an instructor there. That's how I started. And I also do corporate sales, and also just recently, now I'm organizing this study trip abroad.
Wow, that sounds exciting. Okay, well, we're going to flesh all those out in just a few minutes. So Jean and I know each other through, of course, obviously we're both instructors at the Napa Valley Wine Academy. We're kind of sisters from another mother, I think. We've led very similar paths. We've taken somewhat similar paths to get where we are. And we've been, really good friends ever since we met at the academy. We actually started working together not right away because she's in Florida and I was here in Napa and everything was fine until COVID hit. And Jean was teaching online classes and for WSET Level 1 and 2. And enrollment went so crazy, they added a whole nother set for every month. There was one of each a month and added another one. And I became the instructor for that. So Jean and I really collaborated a lot over, the last 3 years, working very closely together. We've written content together. We've revised content. We've developed all kinds of fun, interactive ways to help students be more engaged. We've just done a whole lot of things. And through that, we became really, really good friends. In fact, we go to Florida. My husband and I go to Florida to visit her and her husband, and they come here once in a while, and our husbands are buddies. So anyhow, we've become fast friends. But I really wanted to have Jean on, especially because of her expertise in wine education. We get so many students and coaching clients that, and even just people reach out in general. How do I become a wine educator? I want to be a wine educator. And, I think that what Jean will bring for us today, what I know she'll bring is to give you a sense of what it means to be a wine educator. It's not all sipping and swirling by a long shot. So we're going to kind of flesh that out for you guys and talk to you about what it all means. Of course, there's a million different kinds of wine educators, but, we're really what you might call, formal wine educators, where we're actually teaching certification classes. So I know this is an aspiration for a lot of you. And I thought, Jean's going to bring a lot of her knowledge and her expertise to the table today. So, Jean, before we get started on the official part, tell us what was in your glass the last time you had a glass of wine.
Well, last night I enjoyed a glass of Catena White Clay, which is a blend of Semillon and Chenin Blanc from Argentina. And since I'm going to Argentina in March, then I thought, I should prepare myself. So
Right.
I'm drinking a lot of Argentinian wines.
Yeah, tough job you've got. Actually, Catena, I used to represent Catena back in my distributor days in Ohio. We were, I think that was, I forget what portfolio that was in at the time, but anyway, it was part of the book that we sold. So anyhow, it's a great wine, and I'm glad that you were able to enjoy it. I had nothing exciting, but a nice bottle of wine. I had a little, some Markham Sauvignon Blanc in my glass last night. So anyway, from right here in Napa. So Jean, tell us about you. Tell us, where you're from. Where do you live now? Just your life story, maybe your education, some experiences you've had along the way. What do we need to know to get to know Jean Cox?
Well, I'll start from the beginning. So I was born in Ocala, Florida, but my dad was military. So we moved around quite a bit at the beginning until I got to about third grade. And then we settled in Northern Virginia, where he could be stationed at different places, but we could live in the same place. So as a child of a military person, that was lucky for us that we didn't have to move. So I was able to finish my high school, and I went to college there. I worked for a drugstore chain that had 170 stores there through high school and college. And then my last position there was I was an assistant cosmetic buyer there. And then I decided to move. My parents moved to Florida before I did, and I decided to move back to Florida, where I worked for Revlon and Max Factor. And then for a change, I decided to become a flight attendant. So I was a flight attendant for 19 years and did quite a bit of traveling during that time, met my husband during that time. And then we eventually moved back to St. Petersburg, Florida, where I live now.
So it's that whole pilot, flight attendant thing going on, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we've been married, but I think sometimes people think pilot, flight attendant, but we've been married 34 years now. So it's worked
Wow.
for us.
And he's a great guy. He's really a great guy. In fact, I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, but some of you in the audience might have seen John Cox. He's occasionally a safety expert, a flight safety expert on the NBC Today Show. And you'll see him every now and then. You can't miss him. He's got white hair and a big white mustache. And he's always on there. So anyway, okay, well, that's, you have such an interesting story. And so you became a flight attendant. Obviously, you did it for a lot of years. You were very successful at it. How did you end up moving into wine?
Well, it's funny because I decided after flying for a long period of time, and I was flying, during the 2001 9/11. And so, I decided I wanted to change. And I actually went to a wine tasting. It was in a little shop, with a small distributor. And I thought, wow, I like to drink wine. This would be so cool. I could just get some samples and go around tasting, people on these wines, and it would be great. I'd get to taste them too. And so that's kind of how I got started. And it was recommended go to a small distributor. So I applied for several small distributors, and I got hired. And then all of a sudden I said, oh, wow, I really don't, I like to drink wine, but I really don't know much about wine. So that started my quest for wine education.
So you mean to obtain wine education for yourself so that you could, obviously the more you know, the more easier it is to sell. Because, we forget sales. When you're a salesperson, it involves a lot of education. You have to teach your buyers or your clients about the products you're selling. So, you sort of do become a wine educator. That's how I got my wine education bug, was to become a wine educator. I have to laugh at your story when you said, you went to a tasting and the distributor rep was there and he was pouring wine and talking to everybody. And that was like, wow, I want to do that job. Well, in my distributor and supplier life, we would do a lot of wine dinners and a lot of tastings like what you're talking about. And people would say that to me all the time. And I'd say, well, yeah, but that's on top of the 40 hours a week I work. This is not the only thing it takes. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we progress. So you got the bug, you worked for a small distributor, and then where'd you go from there?
And another reason I started my wine education, I needed credibility too. When I go into these wine shops and restaurants, I mean, some of these people have education or they've been in the wine business for a long period of time. And so I needed some credibility. That's why I started with a certified sommelier through the Court
I
of
was
Master.
just going to ask you, what was the first course you took?
That was the first one. And that was, probably, I would think that's about 15 or 16 years ago. So that was pretty much, the thing that I could grab. was to start there. So that's
Yeah.
what
And
I do.
15, 16 years ago, wine schools, wine courses, first of all, online wasn't a big deal back then. So you had to have a school, physical school near where you lived. And at that time, I mean, there's way more now, but that you also have the accessibility of online. We didn't have that 16 years ago at all.
No, we certainly didn't. And of course, anybody that's taken certified som through the Core Masters, it's really not a school. It's really you get the knowledge and then you go take the test. So you're
Right.
kind of on your own. So, but that's where I started. And then I worked for distributors for about 5 years. I finished with a distributor, a small division of a large distributor. But then because I was in that small division, I felt my wine world was small. And so then I went to a small wine shop where I was the buyer, and that opened my eyes to really the wine world, because now in this wine shop, even though it was small, we had a lot of different wines from a lot of different distributors. So that really helped me in learning the wine world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's that. I've always thought working in a wine shop would be great because you get so much exposure to wines from all over the world sometimes. And, hopefully the distributors, if they're doing their job right, when they're coming in to talk to you about carrying their wine, they're teaching you about them and about those regions. So that in and of itself is a good learning experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also during that time, I was also taking more certification classes to try to learn. And as you said, in a wine shop, you get to meet winemakers that have traveled around the world, that are working the market, wine reps. I mean, it's just it really does really open your eyes.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of exposure. So was that the stepping stone then to work for the Napa Valley Wine Academy? How did that all come about?
So after about 5 years with the wine shop, I decided, working weekends and holidays and evenings, really not my thing, so much. I checked that box off, and so, but I still want to take, classes. So how I got hooked up with the Napa Valley Wine Academy was I decided I had been hearing about these WSET courses, which I had not taken one. So because I had a lot of different certifications, I was able to start at level 3. So I took the level 3 here in Tampa. And Christian Ogenfuss, the CEO and founder of Napa Valley Wine Academy, was my instructor. So, and the class was great. I really enjoyed it. But then, I got to thinking maybe like those people that visit you during the wine, what I did at the wine tasting, I said, well, maybe since he lives in Napa and I live here, he needs an instructor here in Tampa. Maybe that would be great. That would be something I'd like to do, is to get into education. So I emailed him and kind of kept emailing him, kept raising my hand. Here I am. And finally, he gave me an interview. And then I had a presentation with our VP of Education, Catherine Bouguet, and I got hired.
Wow. Well, that is so you really created your own destiny, and you saw an opportunity, and you filled it, and you found a way to fill it, and in a way that was good for this academy and good for you as well. So now people can get education on a regular basis in Tampa, more than just a person coming down once or a couple, maybe a couple times a year. So I think that's amazing. It really, for those of you listening that want to get into the wine industry, I always say, don't wait till there's a job description. Don't wait till someone posts a job. Figure out what you want to do and go after it. You don't have to wait till there's a job. Go make your own. And this is a great way to, it's very entrepreneurial on your part to do something like that. And so you've been with the company. When did you start with the academy?
I started as a part-time instructor, so I don't really know my exact hire date, but I think I'm here about 6 years now.
Oh, okay. So a couple, yeah. So I've been there 3. So, right. And so, I mean, the academy, that's pretty early on with the academy. They were, I think, founded in '04. I think.
Yeah, I think.
I think that's when they did their very first class, maybe. I think that date sticks in my mind for some reason. But it's not like they've been around forever. The good news is, because of Eugene, and then we added a Nashville gal, Jess, and we added a Cleveland gal. I think Liz was pretty early on as well up in Cleveland. And now we've added Santa Barbara, correct? We're down in Santa
Yeah.
Barbara. We have somebody in Vegas, I think. It's really because you kind of spearheaded the concept of opening up these satellites. And it's the school has, I mean, well, we are now the largest wine school in the world for WSET outside of WSET London. So, it's really grown the business tremendously.
Yeah, and I, that was my second really job at the Napa Valley Wine Academy, and that was coordinating the satellites. So I
Oh, that's right.
worked with all the venues and all those. We taught in 6 different locations, and I coordinated the venue and the instructors and the classes and set dates, etc. Now we're going to more on some of those satellite locations. We just do the level 3 exams for now,
Mhm.
but we're still teaching in person here in Tampa and in Napa. All the
Gotcha. And of course, we have the courses online as well.
absolutely,
But
absolutely.
with level 3, the difference is for level 1 and level 2, you can do the whole thing online, including the exam. For level 3, you can do the course online, but sooner or later, you got to go to one of our satellites or to Napa to take the actual exam because there's a tasting component and you can't taste virtually. So that's the way that works. You've mentioned certifications, your certifications. I have to admit, and Peter used to tease me all the time because I had, a bunch of little certifications. You blow me away. You are the most certified human being I know. So I'm going to read off a couple of them because I know you don't want to do it yourself. So your WSET level 3, your certified certified specialist in wine, that's a CSW, certified sake professional, French wine scholar, Spanish wine scholar, Argentine wine specialist, and certified sherry wine specialist. And, I have to ask how much of that education was because you needed it or felt it would help you on the job, and how much of that was out of your own just personal love of all things wine?
I think I jumped at the chance for any anything that came my way, and there's so many things you have to kind of decide. But I think as far as being an instructor, I think it's the level 3 is very important. And here at the Napa Valley Wine Academy, to teach level 1 and level 2 for the WSET, you have to have the level 3. So that's a requirement. And then the certified som that helped me when I was out, selling wine to restaurants and retailers. The certified specialist of wine was something that was my second certification. That's because I knew when I took the certified som that I would not do advanced because I was not interested in working in a restaurant. So I really wanted more education. So that was my certified specialist of wine. Sake came along because I worked at the wine shop and I was offered the opportunity to take the course at the distributor paid for it. So that was
Nice.
great. And then the French wine scholar, Spanish wine scholar, I got that. I acquired those here, and that was so that I could be able to teach here at the Napa Valley Wine Academy both those courses, quite in depth, very good. And then the other courses, are just small, more regional courses that I really truly enjoy, where you can really focus. I also have the Napa Wine Expert course through us, so those are small courses that you can really kind of just dive into and really enjoy. So,
Yeah.
but I think all really, being an instructor, you really have to be on top of your game, and you really have to keep up with the things that are happening in the wine world, and things are happening so fast and all the time that, without some education and continuing education,
Right.
you kind of lose something.
Yeah, I think reading trade publications is so huge. There's lots of them you can get for free online. There's the Wine Advisor, and the Wine Business is another good one. Of course, the Wine Spectator, Wine Enthusiast. Those are all great. But it's really important. And what would you say if somebody wants to be a wine instructor, a wine teacher like we are? What would be the best course? You can't do them all at once. So what path would you suggest?
I mean, I would suggest, and we see a lot of it because we teach those courses, but I think the WSET is the one right now that is really recognized with distributors, with restaurants, even in restaurants where, they like to have a certified som, but they recognize I've in my corporate sales job, I have coordinated, classes for restaurants because they want their staff to be educated
Right.
in wine. So that's where I would do it. And the CSW, I enjoy that, and that's got a lot of knowledge. That's kind of along the line of the level 3. So I think, those are very important.
Yeah, the thing I like about WSET, and I also used to teach a lot of restaurants, a lot of restaurant staff, and I'm WSET Level 3 certified as well. The thing I love about WSET is it really, that way the further you get along in the path. So there's 4 levels. There's 1, 2, and 3, and then there's diploma, which is number 4. And, if you have your level 3, you could teach levels 1 and 2. And when you get your diploma, then you can add 3 and diploma to what you're allowed to teach. But the nice thing is that if you get your level 3, at least you can start teaching. And I like teaching the beginners just as much as I do the people with more knowledge, because you get a lot of those light bulb moments and you see people's mind really opening up to wine being more than just liquid in a glass and how it gets there. And, and then when you get to level 2, you start adding a little more regional interest. And I think that that's such a rewarding way to go. And the other thing I like about WSET is, it takes you pretty far once you get into diploma, because diploma is divided into 5 units, and it's about a 2-year program. Each unit is tested separately, but you have to have all of them to say that you have your diploma. And, so it's a path you can follow for quite a while, and, get that diploma. And it's like, wow, like that's very, very impressive. Level 3 is impressive, but level 4, the diploma, is hugely impressive, but it gives you all the next steps. You can follow it really well, where it doesn't just stop at a certain point. I also started off in the SOM. That was my first certification too, in the court. And I found it very interesting, but like you, it's very restaurant focused. It talks a lot, you learn a lot about physically standing tableside and recommending and serving wine and the physical serving of wine. And like you, I was like, no, I did the restaurant stint already. I'm good. I don't mind teaching restaurant people about wine. I love doing it, in fact, but I don't want to serve it again. So,
Totally agree. Totally
yeah,
agree.
like I say, you and I have gone on a little bit of the same journey. So give the audience an idea. So I know you wear a lot of hats, but think about just the things that are needed to be an instructor that you do. So what percentage of your time, of your instructor time, is spent actually standing in front of a group or on a Zoom, actually teaching, do you think?
Okay, so that's a great question. Because there's so much behind the scenes. And for level 1, basically, I'm doing 3 webinars. That are an hour, maybe an hour and a half each. That's not very much time, but I've put in time behind the scenes, keeping up with all the changes of the WSET, changing my PowerPoints, really just keeping up with stuff. Same thing with level 4. We have 4 webinars, and they're an hour and a half, but that is...
You mean level 2?
I mean, level 2. Yeah. So, but I would say probably, but I do that all the time. So that is, now I don't have to focus on too much research. But for things like the French Wine Scholar and the Spanish Wine Scholar, that takes a lot of preparation. Even though I have the certification, if I were to teach that again, and I'm not currently teaching that, I mean, I would have to really just completely restudy everything, because as an instructor, you have to know everything, especially with big courses like that. So there's a lot of research going on.
Right.
Background, going over your slides, going over your PowerPoints, thinking about questions you might be asked. So yeah, you have to be completely prepared, which takes time. So you asked what percentage, and I would say for overall, I would say that probably 80% of my time is preparation and 20% is actually presentation.
Yeah, for sure. And, online especially, I find that, like you say, level one, we do 3 webinars. They're an hour a piece. So there's 3 hours of education for a 4-week class that they take. But then there's, communicating with the students. You have to send welcome notes into the portal, and you have to answer a million questions, which is great. That's what you're there for. I mean, these are interactive courses. They're just not all 100% live. And then there's the homework. And if you've got 100 students in the class, that's 200 pages because there's 2 assignments, and that's 200 papers to grade. And a thoughtful instructor like yourself takes time to read them and critique them and send feedback back to the students. So, those are things, those types of things take way longer than the 3 hours of just straight teaching. And like you say, once your deck is built and it's all been, edited, then those will live until the WSET changes content, and then then you kind of have to make some changes. But
and is the support of the student, because we do have a student support team, which are great, but you are there to be the first person that can try to help them. You give them, they can email the support team, but you want to know what's going on. I always tell my students, if you have a problem, if you didn't get your books, if you didn't get your wine kit, if you have any problems with the online platform, you can but let me know. You can email our IT team, our support team, but I want to know so that I can keep track and make sure that they're getting what they need. And that's a lot of it. But you're right about homework. I give feedback on everything, even if they've done a great job. I'm still going to say something. You've done a great job, good work, etc. And then sometimes I can give more feedback just to kind of make sure we're still guiding in the same direction. But yeah, we give a lot of support, and there's a lot of things that we do.
And doing that all in writing is, that in itself. And, you mentioned wine kits, and, I find that just managing the wine kit portion of what we do. So the students get a wine kit, could be 6 bottles for a level 1, 12 bottles for a level 2. But sometimes the type of wine changes for beyond our control, reasons beyond our control. Sometimes obviously the vintages eventually are going to change. And so there have to be new evaluations of those wines. And, so there's a meeting with all the instructors, and they all get a sample, and, we taste them together, and we write a new tasting note. And then there's just, team meetings, instructor meetings that you go to. So there's a lot of things that eat up time, learning new technologies, learning a new learning management system. There's a whole lot of things besides just the sipping and the swirling. But it's not to say it's not a rewarding job. It's just more than what the typical student or consumer sees, we like I say, we always get that question. It's like, this isn't really all there is. Yeah, it is fun, but there are, it's a job. There's a reason why we get paid for it, because it is, it is a job. And so we talked about credentials, and, I know that for teaching, of course, that's absolutely important to credentials. Just before I don't want to talk a little bit more about that, but for the corporate sales, tell us a little bit about that. And are there credentials that are important for that necessarily?
I think for corporate sales, well, you do have to have some kind of, I don't know if you have to have specific credentials, but you do have to know what courses, everything that we have. You have to know everything, all the classes that we have, because when a customer calls and they've got a group, because it's not always, I do a lot of wineries or distributors, okay, and they know usually exactly what they want. But then we have private groups that just want some wine education. Maybe it's a team building event for their team, or it may just be a group of people, and some of them want kind of custom made. So you really have to know what we have. You have to have wine knowledge so that you can guide them to what they really need. So you definitely have to have wine knowledge. I don't.
You kind of have to know the language of wine.
Yes, exactly.
And then what about for the travel piece of what you do, the coordination of the study abroad program? I'm assuming the wine knowledge helps. Credentials maybe not needed, but probably very helpful.
Well, but with for the study abroad course trips that we do, you do, because we usually get an expert that excuse me, is in that region, and then we coordinate with them. So you have to be able to talk and say, well, we want to do these types of wineries, and we want to do these types of wineries, and we want to go we want to go here, we want to go there, and to know what's important, so that when we go on these trips, we've hit the important wineries and locations, that we want to see. So yeah, you have to know. You really do have to have knowledge and know
Yeah.
what you're trying to present. The study
Right.
trips are great, and most, not all. You don't have to have any certifications to go on the trips, but they are educational trips. So you want to have at least want to be able to learn, because they are. We usually spend some time in a wine school, a local wine school, for like a half a day. So you
Right.
will be getting some education, along with, of course, tasting wine and eating great food and having a great time.
Right.
But yeah, so I coordinate, our contact, and we get hotels and wineries and dates, of course. So yeah, so I've just started doing that a couple months ago. Even though I've been on I've been on two of the Burgundy trips, and then I've been on the Argentina trip, and again I'm going to go on it again. So kind of kind of gave me an idea of what, because I didn't, when I went on the two Burgundy trips, I didn't set that up. So that really gave me a good idea of how and what we were looking for to
Right.
present to our students.
Right. And, the value of travel, and you're beyond just these trips, you're very world traveled. We're a flight attendant. I know that had a lot to do with it, but I know you and John travel around the world. Bill and I do some traveling and try to look for wine regions. We may not make it a whole wine trip, but we always try to, hit some wine regions. The value of that, of seeing a region live and up close, is just, to me, just as important as getting wine certifications. I think it's a resume enhancer. For those of you who are looking to put a little more wine on your resume, I always put my wine travel on there. And I know these trips through the academy are just really immersive. And like you say, you don't have to have a lot of knowledge going in, but you have to be hungry for knowledge. It's not like, oh, we're just going to go visit a couple of wineries for an hour here and there. You're really immersed in, the Mendoza region, or, the Beaune, or wherever you're at. You get
Yeah.
a lot of immersion, right?
You definitely do. I mean, there are times when you're walking with the oenologist in the wine in the vineyard. They have dug soil pits, so you're looking at the different soils, the layers of the soil. So it's really good. And that we did a blending event, so you really want to know kind of the different grape varieties and what they bring to the blend, so that you can make your own blend. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, you definitely want to know. You want to know what they grow, why they grow it, the climate, current weather patterns, when they harvest, when they don't. And that's the big reason we're going back in March, is that's harvest time for Argentina. So we'll be there right in harvest time, so it'll be spectacular.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to talk to, your guides,
Yeah, and these are more experienced than, say, just going to a winery and sitting down, or even walking around the winery a little bit and then tasting a couple wines. This is not that. This is, these are not things that are open to the experiences that are necessarily open to the public. You've got to have the insider there to open these doors, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you definitely do. I mean, if you really want to do a wine trip, you need to get on a professional wine trip that focuses
yeah,
on wine, and that's what these are. I mean, we got to meet some really impressive people, and we got to go into the wine cellars, and it was just very, very impressive. Go behind the scenes, I'd say. We went
yeah. And
behind the scenes story.
there's always a couple of Napa Valley wine educators, wine academy educators on these trips too, so they can kind of help you where, if you get a little lost or you're not really understanding something, the educators that are there can help you get a better understanding. Correct?
Exactly. So, Burgundy trip, Christian Ogenfuss goes on that. He's a Burgundy ambassador. So he even teaches at we go to the wine school a couple mornings, and he does some of the instruction there, and he's been there many times, and he's very, very knowledgeable. So yeah, so every trip that we go on, somebody that has knowledge is going to go there. And there are two people usually that are going. Christian is also going on the Germany Alsace. They're there's not another Napa Valley Wine Academy person going, but we have a master of wine that lives there. So, very, very knowledgeable. And so, so whoever your guys are, definitely know the region and definitely know, have education.
Well, while we're here talking about this, I know everyone's saying, "Wait, how do I get in on this?" So, what's the best way for people to find this all out, find out more about the academy? Because we'll get to this anyway about the Napa Valley Wine Academy, and then specifically about these wine trips.
Well, we have a great website. So on our websites, all our trips are listed under study abroad trips. So you can find out all about the trips there, the dates. We have quite a few available, and actually, I'm looking into 2024 as well. Because, we find that we get so much great feedback. Students really enjoy these trips. So we'll be doing some more, even in some different regions in 2024. And then if you want to take courses, they're all listed. And if you have questions, like if you're not sure what course should I take or where should I start, we have career counselors, right? And Karen is one of our career counselors, so she can help you, and she's been in the business for a long time, so she can help you. We have a student support team, so you can find help to kind of help and guide you. What classes you take really kind of is, what is your goal for the courses? Do you really want to be a wine educator? Then you should take, I would suggest you take this route. If you just are an enthusiast, I don't ever want to be in the wine business, but I want to take some courses. We got to find out what your passion is and lead you to the right place.
Right. Oh, exactly. There's a lot of things you can find on the website. And if you just go to and I'm having a hard time finding the abroad ones, the study abroad. But there's a chat box in the lower left-hand corner, and usually it's Anya, and she's there waiting for you. So you can always ask her. I don't know why I'm having I was gonna.
It should be. Do you see it? It should be listed, under courses, and then you scroll down.
Oh, it is under. That's why I was looking at.
Or you can search for it, study abroad.
Here we go, wine trips. Okay, so if you go to courses, and then it'll say course catalog, and just scroll down on the left-hand side to where it says immersive learning and click wine trips. So just so the audience knows exactly where it is, wine education abroad. So that's right there. You can also find, if you get on the website and click resources and scroll down a bit, you can find this podcast. If you don't want to listen on Apple or wherever else you get your podcast, you can listen to it right directly from our website. And then there's also articles and videos, talks about our instructors, tells you all about all the classes, coaching, like you mentioned, Jean. All of us are signed up as coaches. I kind of tend to be the resident career coach. Jean, you coach for levels 1 and level 2. You just click coaching, find whichever coach you'd like to work with. It gives a description of what our specialties are. And then you can book your appointment right on the coaching site. It has access right to our calendar. So you just pick the available date and time that works for you, and off you go. Anyway, there's lots of resources. And then there's also a membership tab. So if you're not a member, and I hate this I don't mean this to sound like a commercial, but I know, everyone listening is looking for ways to get in the wine industry or ways to advance their wine knowledge. And our membership program, do you know how much it is, Jean?
$125.
$125. So think about it this way. So $125 a year, that's less than the price of a glass of wine in a restaurant a month. So it's very affordable. A decent bottle of wine is going to cost you that much. And the resources on there are just amazing. Truly, truly. We do have free resources, but the ones on the membership are just such a step above all that. So I just was looking at the website while we were talking, and it reminded me. So I thought, well, we better let the audience know what they can get. So
they're always adding things to that membership. I was just
constantly
got a notice that they've added some things about some Lebanese wines and what's the other thing? But they're always adding things, so it's a great. Please check it out if you haven't.
Right, and I don't know if we've added them yet or they're soon. We're adding flashcards for WSET, which is huge because Gene, our students are constantly asking us, where can I buy flashcards? I always tell them, look, the best flashcards are the ones you make because most of the resources for WSET flashcards, half the time they're wrong. But I can tell you, we are a WSET specialist. I promise our cards will not be incorrect
Yeah,
at all.
they will come. And I believe they're on there, Karen, but I'm not
Yeah, I
100%.
don't have access to it at the moment. It'd be too hard for me to get to it. But yeah, I think they are live. But if not, they will be.
Right.
Anyway, so so you do a lot of things. You do the instructing, you do the corporate sales, and you do the travel abroad organizing. What's the most rewarding part of your job?
Oh, I think you kind of went over it a little bit when you said, I like teaching level 1 and level 2 because I love when people all of a sudden get excited and, like they're learning something. And so I really, really, really enjoy that. And especially, like if you're teaching a level 1 and you get feedback that says, oh, I loved it so much, I'm definitely taking level 2, then I know that you've opened their mind and that they really have that desire to continue and to learn. And I think that's the most rewarding part of
Yeah,
it.
and you mentioned earlier that you started because you had worked in the industry a little bit and you had some wine knowledge, a fair amount of wine knowledge. You went right to level 3. I went right to level 3 as well because I'd been in the industry for a long time. You don't have to necessarily take 1 in order to take 2 or 2 to take 3. I will say I think if you have a little bit of wine knowledge or experience, going on to level 2 first is probably okay. I think going right on to level 3 can be challenging.
Oh,
Level 3 is a big, big course. We did it, but you have to remember we had years of experience. So
yes.
yeah,
And we had other certifications. I already had the CSW, certified Som,
right.
certified Sake. But when I opened the book, and when I got the book, I opened up for level 3. I went, "Oh my, what have I done?" Because it is really pretty intense.
Yep.
Very very in depth. So, and I think some of it is too. Every organization kind of approaches wine and presents wines in a different way, and so it's kind of good to kind of see how the WSET tastes wines, what they're looking for, how they do their systematic approach to tasting, and how they approach wine and how they present it. So if you have some wine knowledge and been in the business for a while, I think starting at level 2 is a great idea. Starting at level 3, you really want to have quite a bit of knowledge.
Yeah, it would have been helpful to understand the WSET way when we got to level 3. For me, I felt that way. I mean, I did well, but it took me a lot more work, I think, than it would have
Oh,
had I gone to level 2. I think bypassing level 1, if you're really not a true beginner, bypassing level 1 is probably fine. And I will tell you, I have never, and I'm guessing you're going to say the same thing, I've never once had a student walk away, no matter what their level of experience was. They've never walked away from level 1 or level 2 and said, oh my God, that was so boring. I didn't learn a thing. It's always the opposite. In fact, as you know, I just did a level 2 course for the folks at Terlato here in Napa. I did a 2-day live course, and these are wine educators. These are people that are in the winery that'll take care of you when you come in to visit. They walk you through the tasting. They teach you about the wines. And we just did a level 2, and a lot of them were scratching their heads saying, wow, we had no idea, it was going to be this in detail. So it's
yeah,
level 2 is pleasantly challenging. Level 3 is very wonderfully challenging. Let's just say.
yes, it is. It is.
It's a great course, but it does, and you walk away feeling on cloud 9 if you pass, because
Yeah.
you really feel like you own your wine knowledge with really even with level 2, but level 3 for sure.
And I think another thing that we do that is great for the students is we really have a lot of support for that level 3, because the level 3 exam is tough. I
Yes,
mean,
it is.
it is a tough one, and so we have a workshop exam, 2-day exam workshop. So that really prepares you how to write the theory questions, what they're looking for when they ask a question, how to taste, exactly what you're looking for, what you're exactly what you should be doing on that exam. So I
Mhm.
think that's really important too. I think people really enjoyed taking that workshop.
Yeah, for personal information, for those of you interested in WSET Level 1 and Level 2, the exam is strictly multiple choice. That's why it can be taken online. When you get to Level 3, there's multiple choice. There's a tasting component where you taste two different wines, usually a red and a white. And then there's an essay portion. They like to refer to it as short answers. They have a different idea of what a short answer is than I do. I think they're pretty intense. And so you can see why it's a bit, and you have no idea what they're going to ask you. It's all, anything in the book is fair game. But the good news about WSET is that they give you all the content you need. I always actually discourage students from going outside of the course to study for the test because, everybody sort of has their own. I mean, wine can be a little fluid, and, the CSW teaches certain things a little differently than the WSET and vice versa. So I just tell them, just absorb the material we give you and you'll be fine. Don't try to get off too far off the beaten track. So anyway, well, Jean, we're getting kind of into the heading home here, if you will, into the home stretch. So we talked about a few things, but what are some things that listeners right now who want to get into wine education or the other things that you do, but what are some of the things that they could do right now to start the ball rolling? In other words, to start setting themselves up for success, for being considered for a position. What can they do?
I think the first thing to do is decide what wine course you want to take and take one. And then there you will also have the chance to network, right? And when we get back to doing, wine tasting, go to wine tastings. There you meet distributors, reps and other people. You may meet winemakers. I mean, and learn about the business, how the business works, whether you're, there are suppliers, there are sales reps. But if you want to get into being an instructor, the first thing you're going to need some certification. But and you really need knowledge. So it's so that's where you pick up all the journals and those kind of resources. But as you said, when you're studying for an exam, especially WSET, you want to only study their material so that you don't confuse yourself. But I always say take courses, get your resume in line. Even maybe you want to work in a wine shop for a couple evenings. And when you're in there, you can just go through the wines when you're not doing other things and look at the labels, look at the regions, pick an area, pick France, pick Burgundy, and say, okay, I'm going to look at these and find out about them. What grapes are growing there? Where are they located? Look at maps. I mean,
that's an absolutely fantastic idea. And if I could just interrupt for 1 second, I had a coaching client, and she really wanted to get in the wine industry. She was in the shoe industry prior, and but she really wanted to be in wine. And so we talked, and I said, see if you can get yourself a little part-time gig. And this was right during COVID. Well, she ended up volunteering at a liquor and wine store. And she wanted to get into sales. And she ended up meeting some of the wine distributors that would come through, talking about their, promoting their wines and trying to get them to carry their wines. And it was through that connection that she learned about an opening and she got in. And she had no wine experience before that. She was a WSET student. And, so those types of things, wine bars, anything you can do. And, the other thing you can do is while you're waiting to become a formal wine educator, be a casual wine educator, teach some classes, find some friends and do a wine night and walk them through a wine 101.
And form a tasting group, taste wines.
Right. Tasting group is huge.
I call that my research. I always tell my students, this is the research that you need to do. You need to taste wine. And if you taste it with other people in a tasting group, you're talking about the wine. You're talking about that Chianti. Where does it come from? What grape variety? What's the climate of it? I mean, so you're talking about it. You've researched it probably before you've come to your tasting group, and you're tasting it. So it all comes together.
Right. And I think you have to ask yourself the question before you choose which course to sign up for is, do I want to be a casual wine instructor, or do I want to be a formal wine instructor? In other words, do you want to do it, in around your community or, that type of thing? Or do I want to actually help people follow in my footsteps and get certifications? So if you want to do it for in a formal way, pick the courses that you ultimately want to teach. So if you want to be a WSET instructor, well, you got to take WSET or Wine Scholar Guild or any of those. So that's a good question to ask yourself. The other thing I'm going to add to your list, Jean, and those were the networking. That's what sparked this in my mind. Well, how do I network? Well, you mentioned tasting groups is a really good way. Working with a large wine school, because they give you all kinds of opportunities to network, all kinds of, the Napa Valley Wine Academy, we've got, hedonistic Wednesdays and blind Mondays. I mean, there's all kinds of ways for you to network. But also LinkedIn. I'll tell you, I don't think the wine industry, people think about the wine industry, they don't automatically think of LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is a great place to follow not just individuals in wine, but there's a lot of, if you know anything about getting onto groups on LinkedIn, it's on the left-hand side, just click groups and type in the word wine, and all these wine groups pop up. And that's a great way to interact with other people that are interested in wine. So you can even do a Facebook tasting group. I know they have one of those. I don't know. I haven't done it, but LinkedIn is an area I would say focus on. And, we just actually, funny. So we have a new social media manager, and she just started on LinkedIn, follow the Napa Valley Wine Academy. And we have a newsletter, a LinkedIn newsletter that's being published. And its main focus is about getting jobs. So my career series articles are there. This podcast will be there. Lots of other things as well. So that's another way to just keep learning more about getting into the industry.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Karen. Very good.
Yeah. Well, your suggestions were great. I really appreciate it. Remember, for those of you who want to book a session with Jean, go to the Napa Valley Wine Academy, just Napa Valley Wine Academy, click resources, look down scroll down to coaching and look for Jean's name. You can grab one there. But if you sign up for an online level 1 or level 2 through the Academy, you got a 50-50 shot of getting Jean. Desiree now took my role there. I do a few other things besides that. So you have a 50-50 shot of getting Jean, but she's a great instructor. And I really recommend, if you're interested in travel and you got a couple of bucks, get on one of those wine abroad trips. Those are truly amazing. They're just amazing. Well, thanks, Jean. It's so fun to talk to, my gal pal.
I know. It is fun to touch base and talk about what the things that we love, which is wine. So,
right. That's right.
Yeah. So thanks so much for having me. I've had a great time. And
thanks for being such a great, informative guest and so much fun to talk to. Appreciate it.
Brought so much memories back. So
yeah, exactly. And thanks to the audience. Always, we have so many great listeners out there, and I get your notes and your letters, and really appreciate it. We're building quite a little following here, and it's really exciting. And if you have any suggestions, below in the show notes is our email address I think it's wwp@napavalleywineacademy.com. You can send us some suggestions as to what you want to hear about. Remember, it's all about jobs. It's not about sipping and swirling, but we do sip and swirl once in a while. Jean, Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Karen. Really appreciate you having me.
Thanks to all of you for joining, and I hope today's show has inspired you to make a career out of your passion for wine. If you'd like to have a one-on-one career coaching session with me, just use the link in the show notes for more information or to schedule an appointment. This podcast is all about helping you follow your dreams, so feel free to send us your suggestions for guests or topics through our email link that's listed in the show notes. And it means an awful lot when you share us with friends or leave a review on iTunes. Thanks for listening. I hope you'll join us again for our next episode.